10 degrees Celsius. Oh, cold day. Hi everyone, Nigel Saunders here. It is a cold day outside and it's quite cool in the greenhouse here too. Today I'm going to be working on some very challenging material. This is a juniper that Joey gave me. Joey has done very little work on this tree at all, and it's going to be quite a challenge. It has a trunk that comes up to here, and then it divides into 5 branches, all basically from one spot. So yeah, a difficult material to work with. Here's a look at that junction point. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 branches, all coming from basically one spot. And some of them are quite thick, like this one over here. It's almost as thick as the trunk itself. So yeah, very challenging material. It has a small branch coming off the trunk back here, which is kind of good to get some back budding on the trunk. There's a lot of back budding close to the trunk line here, in here, which is also good. Eventually, I think this tree will need to be brought in more compact so it's not large and sprawling with skinny branches. So a lot of decisions need to be made on this tree. My goal for this tree today is to begin the work on it. If you do too much work on a juniper all at once, if you reduce more than about 1/3 of the foliage, the tree gets weak and it may live or it may die the following year. You need a lot of foliage on a juniper to keep it healthy and vigorous and growing. If you take it down to like just a branch with a little bit of foliage, the tree could get really weak and it could die. Here's a look at the tree from the other side. So my first goal today is to come up with a plan of action. What do I envision the tree to look like in the far future? So I've got a trunk that comes up, curves around, it's kind of a slanting trunk, it reaches over here, and then the flow line of this direction is suddenly reversed. Everything is sweeping towards the right hand side. In this view, this largest branch comes right out front, kind of, going right towards the viewer. So, and it's 90 degree. It's a 90 degree bend there. It's not very graceful. However, this branch also has all this new foliage tight into the trunk. So, it's possible that maybe someday all this can be removed and I can develop a branch from this young juvenile kind of foliage back here. If I go to the other side of the trunk, it's, still a nice slanting trunk. I have one branch here that kind of grows from the inside of a curve. You can see that everything it does kind of flow upwards here. This could be an apex, but this branch is kind of growing on the inside of a curve. I think if I was to remove my first branch, it would be this one, because I just don't like the location. Even if I could develop this into the branch leader eventually and cut it back, the base of the branch just comes from a bad location. It never looks good coming from the inside of a curve. So I think that is going to be my first step today, is to remove this branch. And it's a long branch. You can see that branch comes from here and it comes all the way out here and has a lot of foliage on it, which is kind of unfortunate that that needs to be removed because it's a very strong branch. So just by removing that one branch today, that'll probably be my 1/3 reduction in foliage. I could do a little more trimming, but I don't want to take too much off, as I said. Otherwise it just weakens the tree and it'll grow terribly the next season. Now the question is, do I gin the branch? Do I leave some deadwood here? And if I leave deadwood here, it's still growing from the inside of a curve. It'll never really look good, that location. So I'm thinking in this case, a flush cut. And then you'll see, without that branch, you'll see the curve of the trunk going up here, which makes the tree a little more graceful rather than too angular looking. If I remove this branch, then I've got this kind of thick one that cascades down, and I've got all this nice foliage here, so it can be reduced in future and kind of be a back branch. This will definitely be my apex up here, And then I've got 2 branches down lower, and probably one of them will get removed in future. So yeah, a lot of work to go on this tree. But as I say, I'm just trying to get it in the right direction today. I'm going to start the work by removing that one branch. And yeah, I just don't see any other solution for this branch. It's just in a bad location. Okay, it's going to go. Here I go. Big cut. Done. So there it is. There's the whole branch. Almost a tree itself. So I'll clean that cut up, making it as flush as possible. All right, here I come in with the knob cutters to clean that pruning point up. Okay, that is good and flush. So when you remove a branch, a major branch like that, you have to live with the possibility that it could die back along the trunk in that area, that I may get some dead wood going down the trunk. So it's a possibility. I'm quite sure this will be the front of the tree. The other view from the back, you have that large branch coming out directly to the viewer. And to remove that one would be, you know, I would remove all these fine branches that I can use later on in the design. So I don't want to do that. So this will be my apex, this highest branch up here. And then I've got 2 branches growing in this area. So I've got one coming out the back, and then I've got one that kind of grows above the trunk here. If I were to remove another branch, it would be this one. And there's a fair amount of foliage on it, but I think there's still enough, I hope, to still keep the tree vigorous if I remove that today. And that will reduce my branching, so I've got my apex, the continuation of the trunk, 1 branch here and 1 branch here. So, and they're spaced apart, they're not growing from the same spot. So I think that's a good solution, is to get rid of this one also. It'll make quite a curvy trunk, but you know, I can grow something out in this direction so it comes up, kind of curves, so it has a twisty apex over here. That's what I envision anyway. Is there any other solution about this branch other than removing it? Well, I mean, you could make that the apex, I guess, and have the apex come back over the tree, but I'm not keen to that. You want to show off the slanting trunk. This back branch, well, you could get rid of that one, but then the tree is very two-dimensional. Everything is in the one plane. You know, if you look at it from the front view, everything would be in one plane. There'd be nothing back and nothing up front. So that's not a good solution. You want a good 3-dimensional looking tree. So even though this is a really, really nice branch, now I could just cut it back for today, keeping some of the foliage, so I'm not reducing the amount of foliage all at once. Tough choice. Tough choice. I mean, all this vigor in this branch is just going to make this branch thicker. So I'm going to remove it. Here I go. I knew there would be some hard choices with this tree today. So, do I gin it? Could be a gin. Again, it's on the inside of the curve. It interrupts the flow line, so I'm just going to remove it. If it was on the outside, maybe, but... So there it goes. Another big cut, big branch with lots of foliage coming off. And now I'll clean that up. So I'll come in with the knob cutters and just cut it away. making this area flush. Someday you won't even know there were branches there. It's hard cutting off really nice branches on a tree, but you've got to look at the point of origin of the branches, that if they're not growing from a good location, you just can't keep them. They'll never look good in the future. They'll always be growing from an awkward spot. It's getting pretty close to that foliage. Okay, I think that's quite good. I'm going to rotate the tree around now and deal with this branch, this sort of cascading branch. So I've got lots of foliage in this area, and then I've got part of it that kind of cascades down. You can see part of it was cut off before here. So I'm going to remove a bit more from the tip of this branch, so these areas get a little more strength. And then I'll eventually chase it back, reducing it right back to here. But that will be for another time. So here I go. I'm going to reduce this branch back, and I'm going to come right back to here. Just like that. The other thing I'm going to do, I'm taking a lot off, aren't I? I'm going to just take the tip off my apex here. So these areas will strengthen up, the areas I'll actually be using. This will all get chased back also. So I'm going to take the tip off here. So here I go. Just like that. And I think that is enough pruning for today on the tree. Let's have a look at it. Here's a look at the probable front of the tree, or a possible front. So you can see I've got the tree a lot more compact now. You can see the trunk line comes up. A new apex will form here. You won't see this part of the tree. That'll be gone eventually. So it'll kind of get a bit more of a graceful line to the tree, because the trunk is quite graceful. It curves, it's got a bit of movement to it. It's quite nice. You can see the inverse taper that was developing. You can see the trunk is thicker here than it is back here. So removing those branches will definitely help that. Getting my apex here nice and strong will help the flow line of the trunk. Reducing this back branch is a step towards, taking vigor out of this junction here, so it won't continue to get thicker. So everything's going in the right direction. I think what this tree needs is a year of growth, possibly a midsummer pruning, working on it a little more, but I've got to be patient with this tree. I can't do everything at once. Otherwise, it'll just lose its vigor and never really develop into anything, because this tree is in the very early developmental stages. It's got a lot of growing and a lot of developing to go on it. It's very, very early in the tree's bonsai life. Here's a look at the tree. And here are the branches I took off. A lot of major branches. I would say I probably took half the foliage off the tree. Hopefully not too much. I'll rotate the tree around so you can see it from all angles. Just in case I've missed some angle that, when I'm watching the video, I can see, oh, that might be a possible front in the future. So here it is. Here's kind of the current front, somewhere around here. So we're coming around to the right hand side. Big branch here. Coming around to the back, so you can see how everything's sticking out in your face. That's why the other side is a better front. Coming around to the left hand side. And back somewhere to the front. And again, that might change. It all depends how the tree grows. There's a lot of fine foliage here that could be developed into further branches, filling this area out. So there's a lot of possibilities for this tree in the future. Here's a look at the root base on the tree. It's got some flare at the base, which means, it must have some good radial roots under the ground there somewhere. So I'm not going to repot it this spring. It's in a big pot. There's plenty of room for a root system to grow. So I'll let the foliage develop this year, and then maybe next spring it'll get its first repotting. I'll be doing all the styling work on this tree with just pruning, just clip and grow. So we'll see how it turns out. I did some fairly major pruning today, but I think I resolved a lot of the tree's problems. All those branches growing from one spot, getting the tree a little more compact, encouraging growth in the center of the tree so I can continue to bring those branches back and develop new branches that come from the trunk and the other branches. So I think it has potential. I think, you'll see it continuing to improve over the years, and maybe someday it'll be a nice looking bonsai. I had to make some very tough pruning decisions. It's hard taking kind of mature branches off a tree, but I think it'll look better in the future for it. And that's all for today. I'm Nigel Saunders. Thanks for joining me in the Bonsai Zone.